Hello, welcome back to Covered True Crime on an all new extra report. Today's extra report is going to be called Gypsy Rose Friends Feared Her Release. And if this topic sounds interesting, please stay tuned. For this extra report episode, we're going to spin the block. As you can see here, just recently, Gypsy Rose posted a countdown. This is the countdown to the end of her parole. Now to spin the block. The date was September 2023. Melissa Moore, Gypsy Rose's right-hand woman and opportunist, along with Fancy Maselli and a high school friend that grew up with Dee Dee Blanchard, Gypsy Rose's mother, named Tatiana Gizclair, gathered together to write emotional letters to present to the parole board in order to grant Gypsy Rose an early parole release. Fortunately for Gypsy Rose, she went over the parole board and she was ultimately granted parole and an early release that ultimately led to her release date on December 28, 2024. Also at this time, once Gypsy Rose was granted parole on her parole hearing, Fancy Maselli was all for the Blanchards, as Fancy also had her own agenda into having the Blanchards on board, as Fancy was producing a documentary that surrounded Gypsy Rose's life and her incarceration and her release that was going to ultimately be broadcasted to her Good Wives network that actually never came to fruition. Now, the meat and the royal potatoes of this that's quite interesting is that Fancy Maselli and the same woman that was grew up with Dee Dee Blanchard, that went to school with Dee Dee Blanchard, actually had some concerns about Gypsy Rose's release. And I'm going to show you what they had to say. Here is a news article by In Touch that states Gypsy is said to leave prison once her sentence ends, but could be released earlier as she is eligible for parole by the end of this year. Fancy Maselli and Tatiana Gizclair, family friends of Gypsy Rose, spoke to In Touch about their concerns for her release, admitting fear she could end up back in prison. You know what? This doesn't surprise me one bit, because the things that I heard that Gypsy Rose was doing behind bars, like courting, she got in trouble from courting a whole bunch of different men. She was doing something in there that had to do with courting different men. All of the love letters that she was sending out, that actually, thanks to Toddy Warnskip, that actually just made these letters available, as one of these letters were actually sold on eBay by one of the convicted felons that she was speaking to. Gypsy just never was reformed. But let's go back to reading the In Touch article. Speaking in 2021, Maselli explained, Gypsy has served 80% of her sentence. She's supposed to get out in 2025. But I worry about what's going to happen to her. She doesn't want counseling, which the prison offers. She doesn't feel that she needs any help. She needs better people around her. So there you have it. What individual that you know that so-called endured so much medical abuse and, sensual abuse, if you know what I'm talking about, everything that she said that she endured, but still at the same time doesn't need any counseling, doesn't need any help. They feel like they're fine. You know what individual does that? Someone that is fine, that didn't have those issues, or someone that wants to live their whole life in denial, who is a sociopath that ends up turning to drugs turning to violence and turns to criminal behavior that ultimately leads them right back to where they started, behind bars. But wait, then I find more. Many family friends believe it won't end well. Earlier this year, family friends Fancy Marcelli and Tatiana Gisclair said they don't think Gypsy Rose will be able to handle life on the outside. They don't support early release. In fact, they think she needs more counseling and help before she gets out. I wonder who are the many friends and family that opposed Gypsy Rose's early release, that it isn't going to end well. And to date, how everything has turned out with this whole train wreck with her reality show and her behavior. She has the same exact behavior. She is exerting the same exact behavior she had from the time of the deed and the time of her incarceration. The same exact. So how do we think it's going to end? The grifting, the lying, the manipulating, the use of multiple fake Fox social media accounts to harass and stalk and comment on many content creators' content and platforms just because they are not hip or believing or going on with her narrative. Just the fact that she's not getting her hands dirty and she recruited her stands who do the dirty work for her, that go around doxing content creators, that is unethical and illegal. The list goes on and on. So how is it going to end now in this year of 2025? Now, the reason why I say how is it going to end in 2025 is because as Gypsy is counting down to the days that she is no longer on parole for her freedom, with freedom comes a great deal of responsibility. And Gypsy Rose is not responsible. Gypsy Rose walks around smug, believing that she can get away with everything and that she is untouchable. And little does she know is that that's what the authorities are waiting for. They are waiting for those who are on parole to get off of parole to reoffend. So they can say, gotcha. And the way it's looking, which I have a part 2 coming out after this video, which is going to be called Countdown Back to Jail or something of that nature. We're going to get in touch into what's been going on and some unethical, illegal things that is going on with Gypsy Rose's camp. But we'll leave that for the next video. And speaking to the Daily Mail, Tatiana expressed her confusion with Gypsy's decision to pursue the limelight. Yet she also acknowledges that it may be her best chance to support herself in the future. Okay, there are plenty of ex-convicts and felons that come home that are rehabilitated and they go to school and they do their best and they get a job. I know quite a few of them that turn out to be successful. So her wanting to come out in the limelight was a decision that she made that she can't even handle. Because as soon as someone says something that she doesn't agree with, that doesn't fit her narrative, she loses her mind. Gypsy Rose loses her mind and she goes on a spiral. She already made threats saying that they got her by the short and curlies that she's on parole. Yes, that is considered a threat. So what's going to happen when she is not on parole? The news of Blanchard's release was met with mixed reactions from the public. Some expressed relief and happiness for Blanchard, believing that she was more of a victim than a criminal. Oh, it's more than that, but I digress. Others were apprehensive about the consequences of granting parole to someone convicted of such a grave crime. The case of Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been one of the most talked about stories in recent years. No, not just because of its shocking nature, but also because it has forced us to rethink how we view victims and perpetrators in our society. As Blanchard begins her life outside of prison, it remains to be seen what future holds for her and how she manages to navigate through life post this ordeal. Could you imagine that? This was a whole 2 years before her release. And how has it been so far for her? It's been a shit show. Seriously. And it just continues to get worse. So, let's see what 2025 shall bring. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys as always. Please share your opinions and thoughts down below in the comment section. If you haven't done so already, please join the Cover Crew family and hit that notification bell. Subscribe so you don't miss any videos. As I did state, I have another one coming up that's sort of like a part 2 to this. As always, please take care of yourself and be safe. There are plenty of gypsy roses out there. Love you. Bye.